Introverts. How did you meet your girlfriend? Story 1. She came over to me in a coffee shop while she was on vacation in my country to ask how to tip. We had a 2-hour conversation and then an amazing 5-hour lunch 2 days later. She complained about her hostel, and so I offered her my spare bedroom, and she accepted. Nothing happened, although it seems crystal clear in retrospect that we were falling for each other. Duh. I didn't want to be douchey and make her feel uncomfortable under my roof, so putting the moves on her was not something I seriously considered. 2 nights later, I had to be gone for most of the night on a work assignment, and I asked if she would please watch and walk my dog in my absence. I came home at 5 a.m. and was greeted by my suddenly very soft, very fluffy dog. She had somehow understood, "Will you please wash my dog?" and apparently didn't find that a strange request at all. The next evening, after we'd been talking over a bottle of wine for hours, it seems that she'd have enough of my apparent indecisiveness, hooked the wine glass out of my hand, put it down, and leaned in for a kiss. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 23 years. This guy made some classy moves in this story. I think the subtle hands-off approach, and being that perfect gentleman, goes a long way. And at least it would go a long way with the right girl. A girl who is just a little skanky and looking to hook up might not care, but as you can see, if you put in the time and make the right moves, it will pay off huge in the long run. Hope the dog had a role in the wedding too. Bet it would look very stately with its soft, fluffy hair. Story 2. On the Greyhound. During my time in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Eustis, Virginia. On my way home, which was Denver, Colorado at the time, for Christmas, I saw her sitting across from and slightly behind me. And honestly, I didn't pay much attention to her at first, but my buddy, seated next to her, did. After getting shot down repeatedly for a day and a half, he finally got off the bus. Shortly thereafter, she came over and sat next to me, and we started talking. After that, we got split up, put on different buses, and I kicked myself for not getting her number. Then, when the bus stopped in St. Louis, there she was, standing right there in the entrance, almost like she was waiting for me. If my bus had arrived 15 minutes later, I'd have never seen her again. Then, I found out that the bus to Denver was delayed due to snow and wasn't going anywhere for at least 2 days. She hurried over to the ticket counter and had my ticket changed to Des Moines, Iowa, where she was going, so I wouldn't be trapped in St. Louis for 2 days. We spent the next 4 days getting to know each other, and then I continued home. We had a long-distance relationship for about 6 months until I came home permanently, by which time she had moved to Denver and rented an apartment. We got married 3 years later and have been together 10 years total. Story 3. After 4 years of no dating following a crushing breakup, a mutual friend called to my attention that she was into me. I was oblivious to this. I didn't know her very well, but I was ready to try again. I wasn't even sure if I was very attracted to her, but I figured it couldn't hurt to go on a date with a nice girl. And we hit it off. She's pretty shy, which is why she said that she'd never have the courage to try and talk to me. And in the course of the first date, I'm slowly realizing, wow, she's amazing. Many years later, now we have 2 kids, and there's just a lot of love in our lives. Story 4. At a garage sale. Well, technically my mom's garage sale. My father was a hoarder, but not of old newspapers or glass bottles or garbage. He hoarded consumer goods. Tools, CDs, home improvement stuff, camping gear, hunting and fishing stuff. The man had piles and piles of it stuffed into his home, most of it pretty high quality, all bought on clearance. The old man was a sucker for a deal, even if he didn't have a use for it. So after he passed away, it fell to us to figure out what to do with a stock of overstocked goods large enough to open a store. So we sold it at rock-bottom prices in the front yard, as is tradition. It was a miserably hot summer's day. My mom requested that I come over and help because the house was on a well-trafficked street, and the sheer volume of stuff meant that there would be tons of people. And she was right. There'd been a zillion people the day before, and though we sold a lot of stuff, there was much more yet to go. And today, I put an ad up on Craigslist, so it was even busier. It was a long day of haggling with strangers, but at the end of the day, we've sold 90% of the load, and we were just getting ready to close up and celebrate our success with pizza. Then, this car pulls up, and out hops this gorgeous girl. She starts poking around in the CDs first and finds a couple that she loves, and then waves me over and starts asking about some that she's unfamiliar with. Think she thought that since she'd found a few things she liked, the stuff that she hadn't heard might be in the same vein, not knowing that it was purchased indiscriminately from bargain bins all over town. I answer as best as I can, and I hadn't heard most of them, but I was able to steer her to a couple that she might enjoy. We kept chatting, and I sort of showed her around in between helping other people who kept showing up. There was definitely an instant attraction and some really great conversation, so she had to get going, and so I made her a sweetheart deal on the stuff and helped her to her car. She got in, drove away, and then I realized I hadn't gotten her number. My brother and my neighbor had an effing field day at my stupidity. But she told me where she worked at a restaurant down the road, and she told me the days that she is usually scheduled. So I did something very unusual for me and pursued it. Friday afternoons, I drive over from my office and asked to sit in her section. The food was terrible, but she'd stop and chat as long as it wasn't too busy, and I caught her mirroring a few times. So on my third visit, I told her I'd love to see more of her and asked for her number. 10 years, a marriage, and a child, and we're still head over heels for each other, so I guess I owe my dad for the posthumous hookup. Now that's a story that you don't hear very often. Where did you two meet? Oh, just at a garage sale trying to sell my deceased father's hoarding collection. What I like about this story is the determination of the guy to track down the girl and keep the connection going. And he didn't seem to do it in a creepy or stalky way either. Just casually rolled into the restaurant to make conversation and finally get that number. I bet that girl started figuring out why he kept going to that restaurant, and I'm sure that was very flattering and cute for her. A great story. Story 5. He was in the corner drinking a bottle of water. I noticed him immediately, and I noticed him noticing me for the better part of an hour. I finally just walked up to him after I figured he was too shy to approach me. We chatted for about 2 hours and then left, and later in school we exchanged our AOL screen names, and after weeks of random chat sessions, he finally worked up the courage to ask if I wanted to see a movie, Harry Potter. During the date, he didn't say anything, but I noticed him very fidgety, so I decided to hold his hand. After the movie, we were sitting in his car in silence, and he was fidgety again, so I grabbed his face and kissed his cheek. He turned completely red, but was grinning ear to ear. In person, he had trouble stringing sentences together, but online we would chat for hours, and he had to express his love via email and cuddling without saying a word. We first met over 14 years ago, bought a house together, and got married in October, going to Disney and Universal for our honeymoon, celebrating Halloween. It's pretty much amazing. And as we get older, he's gotten much more vocal, but I still do most of the talking and socializing. We do a squeeze when holding hands to mean love you if we don't want to talk. Story 6. Always thought she was really pretty, and had noticed her when she first moved in to the dorms. She was a year under me. She had a boyfriend all through her freshman year, but I'm not the one to try and mess with that. After that year, my sophomore year, I moved out and went to live in an apartment with some friends. Me and my best friend at the school at the time were pretty introverted, and we were worried that we wouldn't meet anyone since we moved out of separate apartments, and one of the main perks of dorm living was being around hundreds of people your age within 100 feet at all times. So we made a pact to go and visit our old dorm at least once a week to try and meet new people and stay in contact with the underclass men that we had met thus far. She still lived in a dorm but had moved across the street to a different dorm that was all girls. So one time in early August at the beginning of the school year, we went to visit our old dorm around 7 p.m. We found some friends from last year there, including her. Now I didn't know her up until that point, just that she was extremely pretty and her name. Anyways, we decided to go to another girl's apartment to play board games. As a genius ploy, me and my friend had purchased a board game to give us something to do to meet people. We're really cool, in case you couldn't tell. So we go to this house and meet some people that we've never met. Our board game requires pairs of people, so we pair up, and I get paired with the girl who lives in the apartment. My friend gets paired up with a pretty girl. It was fine though, because while I thought she was pretty, I didn't know if she was single. The night went on and it was really fun. We played for about 4 hours and really got some good conversation in with these people that we barely knew or didn't know at all. Afterwards, when my friend got home, I made sure to add everyone that I had met on Facebook, because for reasons that felt important for me. I don't know. Next week, we go out again during the day and I see her there again. Originally, there had probably been 6 of us in the dorm lobby, but one by one, everyone left until it was just her and me. We get to talking and she seemed really cool. I liked her. But she said that she had to go study or something after a while, and I assumed that I had freaked her out or whatever. As you know, that wasn't the best. The next week, she's there again. And we talk for a bit in a group of people before the group collectively decides to go play volleyball at the local rec center across the street. She agrees to come, and before we leave, my friend from before tells me, "She's flirting with you." I didn't believe him and thought that he was just pulling my leg. So we go to play volleyball and she shows up and we play for at least 3 hours. She's there the whole time and seems genuinely terrified to play. It was bizarre. It's like she didn't want to be there but stuck out the whole time despite some people leaving halfway through and it being perfectly reasonable for her to leave then too. Afterwards, some people left to go eat while others went back to the dorm. I go back to the dorm, and she comes with. We talk for a bit, and by a bit, I mean hours in a group. I get really hungry, but I'm afraid if I leave to go eat that she won't come with me and that we'd never be able to talk like this again. So, my friend goes and gets me McDonald's, delivers it to me, and then promptly leaves to talk to other people at a different part of the dorm. I mustered up the courage at 4 a.m., it took me a little while, to ask for her number. She gives it to me, and I see her the next weekend. She kisses me, and I die inside. The next week, I ask her to be my girlfriend, and I plan to ask her to be my wife. Never underestimate the power of a good board game, guys. I think especially in this age of constant social media and cell phones, there is something romantic and nostalgic about a board game that brings out the best and friendly parts of people. I bet these guys didn't fully realize it at the time, but that was also a brilliant move to use a board game to get to know people on campus. It also seems that McDonald's has the power to ignite some sparks too. In the comments, what is your favorite late-night snack that you would have want to have shared with someone that you are flirting with? Story 7. Went on a night out in Chester, was originally not going to because I'm not a fan of drinking, but my best friend managed to convince me to go out. Now there were about 6 of us, 2 couples, me, and another girl. I'm really shy and find it difficult to talk to girls, so for me, the first few hours, I didn't say a word to her, and then we moved to the next bar over. After about an hour in this bar, my best friend's girlfriend ran up the stairs and whispers something into his ear. He comes up to me, and his exact words were, "Listen, Mike, all you have to do is talk to her. I'm not asking you to do rocket science, just freaking talk to her." So I did, and it started off small, like, "How are you?" and "Where do you work?" And it ended up with me losing my V-card that night, and we're still together after 2 months. Story 8. I was living in a duplex with some friends, and one day I decided to take one of my roommate's dogs for a walk, which I never usually did. Shortly after leaving the house, I was stopped by a girl who asked, "Don't I know you from somewhere?" I had never seen her before, but it was enough to start the small talk. She helped me walk the dog around the block, and we were basically inseparable from that point on. What my introverted self failed to notice at the time, she had been stalking me for weeks, trying to get me to notice her, walking her own dog past my house, riding her bike next to my car, waiting for me to get home from work when I would unknowingly street park in front of her house, where she would be doing yard work. She succeeded by catching me walking the dog, which, remember, I never ever did. It was fate, I guess. 6 months after meeting her, I moved out of the duplex and 5 houses down the street, and we've been married 16 years now. It's not considered stalking if both people ended up getting married, right? What a cool story, and a reminder that sometimes fate just has a way of butting in and setting things in motion. This guy just needed a little bit of a push out the door to get things in motion. Apparently, this girl took one look at this guy and knew what she wanted. She sure increased the odds in making the rendezvous happen. Story 9. I met my fiancé on the first day of college completely by accident. I programmed my schedule into my phone and hadn't accounted for daylight savings time. Therefore, I showed up to my first class an hour earlier, unknown to me. I had decided that I was going to make a real effort to put myself out there and be social, so I sat near the front of the lecture hall. I'd shown up with plenty of time before class, which was an hour earlier than my real class, and me and these 4 other people started talking about where we're from and stuff like that. They're all freshmen too, and I'm really stoked because it's before the first class even, and I found a group of friends to hang out with. One of these people is a gorgeous girl in the row ahead of me, and I fall in love with her the first time she turns around and asks me my name. Right before class, we decide to all get lunch at one of the dining halls later at a specified time. About 15 minutes into the class, it becomes really obvious that I'm not in the last class. I go to my schedule online and realize that my entire schedule on my phone is an hour early. So I'm too embarrassed to stand there and leave at this point, so I just stay. I almost didn't go to lunch when and where we agreed upon because I thought it would be embarrassing, but I thought there was a chance that a gorgeous girl would be there. As luck would have it, I ran into her in the lobby of the dining hall, and we ate lunch and talked for 3 hours. We never saw any of those 3 people from the class, and I don't think I've spoken to them since. But then I added her on Facebook, rather than ask for her number because I'm a coward, and we got lunch together several more times the first 2 weeks of class. Then she asked me if I'll go with her to this party that her roommate wants to go to. We both hate it, but I kissed her walking her way back to her dorm, and we've been together ever since. I feel like this guy can't be the first, nor the last by any means, of using Facebook as the replacement for asking for someone's number. Especially in college, it's a near certainty that Facebook is used more than texting when first meeting a cute classmate on campus. What would introverts do without it? This story is another cool example of how fate sometimes just intervenes for the sake of love. This all lined up for these two to get together because of effing daylight savings time, of all things. Well played, universe. Well played. Story 10. The introvert me in college was mostly hanging out in my room on the first floor. She would come by with her friends to hang out with the other guys living in the building. Of course, she would just say hi, passing by, but then she'd stop in for a few minutes. And slowly, she'd hang out more often and longer. People asked if we were dating, and we both denied it at first, but then realized, oh wait, maybe we are? 17 years later, and we are married with a child. So it turns out I didn't even have to leave my room to get a girl.